Hey, happy campers, Todd here at Great American RV SuperStores, and today we're doing a technical walkthrough like you would get on the date of your delivery for your unit. We are doing it on a Heartland Bighorn 3910FB. We're going to walk through the different components and operation on this unit. If your component's different brand name or model from this particular unit, you can find that information on our helpful hacks section on our YouTube playlist for Great American RV, or if you want a deeper dive on your components as well as these components here, you can also find those on the Great American RV Helpful Hacks section of the YouTube. So here we're going to start in the front. We're going to have our 7-way plug. Of course, your 7-way plug is going to transfer all of your turn signals, your running lights, things like that onto your trailer. And we're also going to have a battery charge line that is going to charge up your battery while that engine is running and traveling down the road. It will also send a battery signal charge to help keep that battery charged while you're traveling down the road. The last thing it'll do is it will send your brake signal from your brake controller to the trailer, letting it know when to apply the brakes. Now, speaking of brakes, we're also going to have our breakaway line right here. That breakaway line is going to be our little silver cable connected to our breakaway box with a pin in it. And this loop on the end of it needs to be attached somewhere in the bed, not on the hitch itself, generally to the rails or something like that, because it's intended if the hitch fails or this kingpin fails, that this cable stays with the truck and actually pulls this pin out. If it doesn't stay with the truck and pull the pin out, then it can't apply the brakes to safely stop the trailer if it becomes disconnected. So we need to be certain that we're hooking this up properly. And we also need to be certain that we have a good 12-volt source, meaning good 12-volt battery on our trailer, so it has power whenever needed due to separation from the vehicle. We also need to make sure that this pin is always inserted into this box, because if it is pulled out, it will be applying power to those brakes when not necessary. All right, in our front left compartment, just under our kingpin, we have our center where our hydraulics, bunch of electrical, everything is. It's a spaghetti nest, right? So when you come in here, we're going to start with our hydraulics. We have our hydraulics that run our leveling system as well as some of our slide outs, with the exception of that front one. So our hydraulics are going to operate off of that keypad and our switch. The system is 12-volt controlled. You do have a 250 amp inline fuse in this system that is going to be located inside of this box. And in the event that that pump is not operating, that's one place to check. You're also going to have an inline 12-volt fuse down here. This one happens to be down at the bottom. It's a little blade fuse. Nowhere specifically do they mount it, you just have to follow the wiring. Another thing about our hydraulics is we do have that tank down there at the bottom. That tank is filled up through this inlet right here, and we only want to check the value of this tank, the height of that hydraulic fluid, when everything is retracted. So our slide outs are retracted and all of our jacks are retracted. If we fill this up without retracting everything, when we do retract it all, it's going to overflow and make a big mess in our compartment. So keep that in mind when we're checking our hydraulics. Up here is our inverter system. An inverter changes 12 volts to 110. So this would be if we're boondocking somewhere, we don't have a shore power plug-in, we would have our inverter powered on. That one switch is in that front compartment. We'll show you later. You do have a GFI outlet right there on the side. In the event that it is not working, you can check there and see if it is tripped. You can hit that reset button right there and that will reset that outlet. Below your inverter, you're going to have several disconnects. This one right here would be for your solar system. One of these is going to be for your inverter, and the other one is going to be your regular battery disconnect, okay? So your battery disconnect is going to disconnect that battery right here. You have 2 batteries in this storage center that will disconnect the power from your camper. We want to use this when we are not plugged into shore power, because it will drain your battery otherwise. So that'll conserve some energy on your battery when you come back out to operate it. And anytime our unit is plugged in, we pretty much want to have all these disconnects on. As long as we're plugged in, we're not pulling any juice from that battery. All right, so on the driver's side of our unit, our very first compartment is going to be our LP tank system. This is one of 2 tanks you have on your unit. Your other one's going to be on the other side. And in here, you're going to have that dual propane regulator. That dual propane regulator allows you to use one tank as your primary and one as your backup by selecting with that selector valve which tank you want to use primarily. Now that is going to trigger the red or green indicator on there, green meaning full, red meaning empty, and let you know what the status of that tank is. If the primary tank that you're using runs dry, that secondary tank is going to pick right back up so you don't lose LP usage while you're in the process of cooking or anything like that. It takes it over. Now, if you notice this being the case, of course it's going to give you a red indicator because that primary tank is empty. You go ahead and turn that selector valve to the other tank and it should change, of course, depending on the level of that tank. At what point you can go ahead and get that primary tank refilled. Moving on to our pass-through bay right here behind me. We have, of course, pass-through access as well as our control center with all our water valves, dump valves, everything like that. We'll go over the information on that now. All right, so we can see on our control center here, we do have a quick connect for our coiled hose right here for our line. We can have that outdoor shower with hot and cold. We can hook that up there. We also have our coax connections for cables, satellite, and so on. That's going to lead to different portions of our bedroom, depending on your floor plan. And here we have our options for our plumbing. So we're going to start with power tank fill. Our power tank fill is what we would use to fill our freshwater tank. That is our onboard storage on our unit. So we'd go ahead and turn our indicators to the power fill tank option right there. Fill that fresh tank to whatever level we wish it to be. We can monitor that level by our system on the inside. We'll go over a little bit later. And once we have all this set up, we'll hook that water line from our hose connection right here, turn the faucet on, and of course it's going to begin to fill that tank. At that point, our tank is full. We hit the road, we get to the campground, then we're going to go to our dry camping mode, which would be this selection here. And at that point, we turn on our water pump on the interior, and that 12-volt water pump is going to pull from that onboard storage and supply water to all of our fixtures. Now we use this when we don't have a city water connection or a water source at wherever we're camping at. So we have that onboard water storage to be able to utilize. Our city water connection, that is when we do have a water source at the campground. We'll go ahead and turn the valves to that selection there, turn the water faucet on, and then we have water going to all of our fixtures on our unit. Our winterized option, that would be if we are preparing for winter time. We're going to go ahead and drain water out of our system through the low point drains in our unit, which we'll cover a little bit later. And once we have all the water out, at that point we're going to blow the rest of the water out with a little blower tip, and then we will commence in putting RV antifreeze into our unit. So we do that by turning these valves to that fixture. We're going to take a hose and take it from this city water connection into that jug of RV antifreeze, and then kick our water pump on, and it's going to begin to pull that water into our pipes and everything so we can prep it for winter. Our last one is siphon. This is used if we want to sanitize our water system, and basically the same thing as what winterization was, right? So except we're going into our fresh tank. So we would turn our valves into this, we would make a mixture of bleach and water, and then we would siphon that from our city water connection hooked to a jug of water and bleach or bucket, however you decide to do it. You can follow up in your owner's manual with a little bit more information on that sanitization of the tank. Next, we do have that city water connection right here. Like I said, this is where you're going to hook up to either fill your tank or provide water to your fixtures. If you have that water source, this is that connection there. To the right of it and below it, we have these two black fixtures right here. Those are for your black tank flushes. You have two black tanks on this unit. We'll go over more information on how black tank flush operates a little bit later on. Down at the bottom, we do have a filtration system right here. These valves shut off to this filter housing to where you can go ahead and unscrew it and change that filter out even whenever your system is pressurized. And down here we have our wastewater holding tank, which is going to be our black tank, and then below that one we have our gray tank number 1. So we'll go over once again a little bit more information on dumping that stuff when we get to our valves over there, but just know that this is where your first black and first gray tank valves are located to be able to dump that system. So just past our pass-through bay, we have our Suburban furnace right here. That is a gas-operated device. It will operate off the thermostat on the interior. We'll touch on when we get inside. Now here behind me, we have one of our outlets right here for our sewer system. That one is going to be from our first black and gray tank that we talked about in that control center. And then our next one is going to be right behind it. So we'd have to take those two hoses, put them in like a Y pipe, and then go to our sewer outlet at the campground. Now you can see on our second outlet over here, we have our two valves located actually on that outlet versus the two that are in that compartment. Same thing, you're just going to pull that handle to be able to dump. So you're going to have a gray tank and a black tank separate on that system as well. So two gray tanks, two black tanks. Now our gray tank is going to be our shower water, our sink water, stuff like that. And we can go ahead and leave that valve open all the time as long as we have that sewer connection hooked up at the campground. We can let that water just constantly drain out as we use it. Now our black tank, however, we need to keep those closed. If we don't keep them closed, that water is going to drain out and any solids that are in that tank are going to stick and solidify and cause a big problem for you later on down the road. So make sure we are keeping those black tank valves closed until we are ready to dump. So let's go through the dump process. We are ready to dump. We have our hoses hooked up. We pull that black tank valve and then we go ahead and let everything clean out of there, right? From that point, we hook our water hose up to one of our black tank flushes, whichever one we are concentrating on, and then we kick the water on, and what that does is they have a jet on the other side of that tank that is pushing the water, debris, everything that's in there back down here towards this opening connection. We'll go ahead and let it flush out of that system. Now this does a pretty good job. You may have to let it run for a little while. We're going to do that on each tank and get everything flushed out. Now if we want to go a step further, we can, but this comes with owner warning. If you overflow your tanks, that's 100% on you. It's just a little extra tip, but you have to be very cautious of what you're doing. What you can do is close that black tank valve while your black tank flush is running. Let that tank fill up with a little bit of water, and then open that valve up again and let those solids, any debris that might still be in there, flush out of that system. They tell you not to do that for the simple fact of they don't want you to overflow your tank. So I'm not saying run this for an hour, because by all means you will flood your unit and it will be a mess. So maybe 60 to 90 seconds maybe, but monitor that black tank level on the interior on that monitor to ensure you are not overflowing that tank, and just open that valve up, flush it out, and then whenever you're done, shut all your systems off. From that point, close your black tank valve, go on the inside, hold down the pedal on your toilet for a couple minutes, and put several gallons of clean water into your black tank. This helps knock any residue that's left in that tank down while you're traveling down the road. And then of course also you're going to add your chemicals to help sanitize that tank and keep it nice and clean. The last thing we have under here, just past that last sewer connection, is our red and blue lines. Those are our low point drains that we mentioned when we were talking about winterization in that control center. We'll talk about our slide outs. We have our front slide right here. That is going to be a cable slide, and our rear slide outs are both going to be hydraulic. We have videos on overrides in the event that something happens to those slides and how to get them in or out. We can cover that in our helpful hacks section on the YouTube playlist. On that driver's side rear slide, you are going to see that vent opening right there. That is for just above our oven to be able to vent out. We need to make sure that's open when we want to utilize that system. If we don't, then that air is not going to ventilate out. And when we store our unit, we do need to make sure that it's closed so no insects, rodents, or anything like that will build any nest up in that vent. On the rear of our unit, of course, we have our 50 amp power cord. 50 amp power cord is on a reel on this one, 12 volt reel. So we go ahead and just pull that cord out, plug it in. Whenever we're done, we can hold down our retract button and it will retract that cord into the reel, and that will provide us with our shore power service. Now when we go to plug in our unit, we need to make sure that our AC system and everything is turned off on there. That way we're not causing any surges to our compressor before we plug into our power pole at the site. On the back of our unit, we do have a receiver hitch back here for if we wanted to add a carriage for more storage or anything like that back here. It is not intended for towing, so just be mindful of that. We don't have our lights back here. We don't have tow hook holders, anything like that back here on that system. So it's just for an added carriage for more storage. We're also going to have our Furrion backup camera system already pre-wired on here to have power to it. We can add that backup camera on there so we can see behind us while we're traveling or when we're backing up. We also have our Lippert on-the-go ladder system. We'll see that bracket up top. We can purchase that telescopic ladder to be able to gain access to our roof. Now, why do we need to gain access to our roof? Well, this is important because after trips, we need to check for low-lying tree limbs that might have scraped or damaged our roof, but we also need to maintain that roof, clean it every so often, maybe twice a year at the least, and we also need to check our sealants up there every 60 to 90 days. So all the sealants around our vents and fixtures and everything that are on that roof, that needs to be checked to make sure it's not peeling, decaying, cracking, or anything of that nature to where it needs to be resealed, removed, and resealed, whatever the case may be, every 60 to 90 days. This is required by the manufacturer to stay under good warranty. If we don't do that, they're not going to participate in any repairs when it comes to water leaks. So we need to make sure we're staying on top of that. We also need to check all of our sealants around our trim moldings, our windows, anywhere where you see a screw or a hole or anything of that nature put in the side of our camper. We need to make sure we are checking the sealant around it for those same things, cracking, peeling, etc. on that system. Clean it, reseal it, and make sure we are maintaining our camper so it'll last for years to come. All right, here on the passenger side, we have our LP tanks right here. That's our second LP tank that we have that dual propane regulator system and dual propane tank system on. And in this pass-through compartment, we have our LCI Lippert leveling system. For that control pad, we can go over the operation of that now. So we can see our electronic leveling system right here made by Lippert. If we kick it on, we can see on our main display right here, we're going to have our battery voltage. Whenever we hit our arrows, it brings us to our auto hitch height. Our auto hitch height is used after we have been camping. Basically, this will bring us back to the point that the trailer was at whenever we disconnected from our hitch on the truck, so you don't have to guess what level it needs to be at. If you want to use that feature, you just hit enter and it will begin to extend those jacks out and put it at the height that it was in before you went into that auto level. Our next one is auto retract all. We would go to that once we are hooked up to the truck. We can hit enter and it will retract all of our jacks. Now you should definitely double check your fifth wheel hitch and ensure that you are locked in before you do this, because once you pull away, all the weight and everything relies on that fifth wheel hitch at that point. So be sure you're locked in good before you hit that auto retract all. Our next one is auto retract rear. If we want to just bring up the rear jacks and leave the front landing jacks down, we can go through that. And our last one is manual level. Manual level is if we wanted to go in, hit enter, and we can see right here we have our degree marks. Now 0 is our ultimate goal. That would mean that we're level. We would use these functions right here to raise those jacks. You'll have orange lights that pop up in the corners to let you know that those are indicating the areas where it is low. So if this blinking light on the left hand side is orange, then that means that our left side is low. Same thing on the right, front, and rear. So we would just raise that until that light goes out, and eventually once we hit that 0 mark, our green light in the middle will indicate that we are leveled out. If we need to retract those jacks, we'll just hold down that retract button for just a second. Our red light will come on indicating retract, and we can hit those buttons again and it will retract those jacks. Now front will run front, rear will run rear, and then if we want to do left or right, it will do those left or right jacks. To take off that retract, you just hold that button down for a second and it will go back. Now auto retract will once again retract everything. And our next one shows us our stroke on our jacks. So the LF and RF, that's left front and right front. So this is the amount that those jacks are extended out, and they only have so much stroke on them depending on what jacks they are. So if we stroke out, we run out of jack, you will get an error letting you know out of stroke, and that means that we need to put some blocks or get on a more level area that it doesn't have any more jack left to level that system, and it will stop the auto level. Same thing, left rear, right rear for our jacks. Also on this system, right whenever you turn it on, you can get your voltage display on there. And if you want to just operate your front landing gears, you just got to the campground, you're trying to disconnect from your truck, you don't have to go into that manual mode. You can go straight into operation by hitting those front jacks right there, and that will operate the landing gears in the front. Same thing if you want to retract them, hold down that retract for a second, and then it will operate once again just the front landing gears. From that point, you go into your auto level and allow the unit to level out. Now I want to make sure that we're not moving around in the unit while it is auto leveling. It'll take a few minutes to hit that auto level point. Once it says it's complete, then you're free to go ahead and open up your doors and get inside the unit and start setting everything up. Now also in this bay, we're going to have that solar charge controller system in there. That where our unit, it does have all that solar system on here along with that controller. If we want more information on that, we can scan our solar ready system, and that will give us more information on what else we may need for that solar prep. Also in there below that is going to be our on-off button for our inverter system. We talked about the inverter in that front compartment. That changes 12 volts to 110 if we're dry camping, utilizing that solar, anything like that where we don't have a shore power connection. We can kick that inverter on and we can operate some of our 110 options in our unit. We're also going to have a cable connection in there for cable at the campground to be able to hook up to that TV and be able to scan for channels there, as well as a 110 connection. We have that 110 connection there and there. Both of these are going to be GFCI protected because they are exterior outlets. Now anything in a wet location, your kitchen, bathroom, here we're going to have that GFCI protection. These are going to operate straight off the breaker on the interior of that breaker panel. So when we touch on that breaker panel, we'll talk about how to reset that. Lastly, under here is our Furrion tankless water heater system. That tankless water heater system will give you hot water up until the point where you turn it off. It is a gas operated appliance, so it's going to go ahead and keep on running on demand until you are ready to turn that system off simply by turning off the hot water. We'll go over the operation of that whenever we go inside and touch on the controller. You also have that LP quick connect under here that will go to your LP, and you can hook up that gas grill next to your unit under your awning to be able to cook. On the rear passenger side of our unit, we could see our option right here. This lets us know our spare tires under the rear of your unit. You can use that crank to be able to drop it down. You're also going to have sewer hose storage right there on the rear. You're going to see that tube across the rear of your unit with a cap that opens up, and you can throw your sewer hose in there. All right, at our entry door, of course, we have that safety rail right there. We can store it by simply pushing the bottom of that rail. Getting in a position, we have a little pin down here at the bottom. We pull out, stick into that hole, and it will go ahead and keep it latched. To pull it out, of course, we need to pull that pin out of there, and we can pull our arm down. We can store our pin back into the hole on that rail. Our entry door, we need to make sure that it is latched properly up against our wall if it doesn't have those friction control hinges. So we do that. We can also see on our marker lights on each side, they are upgradable to that Furrion tri-camera system, where we have a camera on each side as well as our backup camera. You can find that at furrion.com or any one of our camping stores for that upgrade. Last thing we have on our entry door is our solid steps. Our solid steps are a great safety feature. Keep it real nice and comfortable going up and down those steps. To be able to store them, just lift them up. Want to make sure our entry door is all the way open so it doesn't hit the frame of that door. Store it, and we're ready to go. Bring them down, we grab that handle, bring it on down, and then we put them on the ground. But we need to make sure that we are leveling our steps out. So auto level your unit, then come over here and level your steps by hitting this silver tab right here, and then you can extend and retract these legs up and down to the level that you need them to be, to where your steps are nice and level on here. So we got to drop this one down, one, and we're nice, sturdy, and level. Now this is real important because before everybody starts going in and out of your unit and slamming that door, we need to make sure it's level, not only for the safety of those steps, but to make sure we're not hitting the frame on our frame of our steps. If we do, it's going to damage that door, and also if our threshold isn't level on here, that door is not going to close and latch properly either. Before we go on the inside of the unit, of course, we need to cover our 12-volt powered awning that's up here, extended and retracted by the flip of a switch. And when we go to operate our awning, we go ahead and roll it all the way out. And we always need to have it cocked from either the rear or the front, have it at a slight angle. We do that by loosening, making sure these knobs right here are loose, we pull that arm in a little bit, and then we tighten up that knob. So that gives us the pitch we need for any runoff, light dew, light rain, AC condensation, whatever needs to run off of this awning. If we don't do that, it can puddle up on that awning and it can collapse, causing damage and an insurance claim that I promise you don't want to have to pay for. So make sure we are cocking that over to the side to be able to drain off. Once again, you can do the front or the rear. Now, another thing about our awning is we need to make sure during very high winds, heavy rains, anything like that, we go ahead and just roll this awning in, because it can cause damage to that component, and once again, an insurance claim that you're going to have to file. So don't take the chance you're leaving for extended period of times unsure. Roll that awning in to make sure that it stays attached and in working condition on your unit. When we go ahead and roll that awning in, we need to make sure we loosen this knob right here, so we can just loosen it up, and that shock will push that arm back up. Then we can go ahead and roll our awning back in to store it. So as we walk into our interior, we can see our control center right here. We have our 12-volt water pump. That's going to pull from that fresh tank that we filled outside. Once again, 12-volt operated, so all we need is battery power to operate that. We're going to use that if we don't have a city water connection. We'll kick that on, and that's going to pull from our fresh tank. We can see if we hit our fresh tank meter right here, what our level is. Once it gets low, we want to be mindful if we hear that pump running, we don't have any water coming out of the faucets, that tank is empty, we need to shut that pump off. Anytime you hear that freshwater pump running and we're not using our water, you want to shut it down. It could mean that you have a leak or something like that. We don't want to burn that pump up. If we don't have water running through it, shut it off. Here we have our gray tanks, our black tank, fresh tank, battery, all these meters right here to be able to tell us what our levels are and when we need to dump or add more water or charge our battery. Here we have all of our lighting for all of our lights on the interior and exterior. Porch is obviously going to be outside, and we have our interior lights, and then we have our awning light. Here we have our retract and extend button for our awning, and of course a ceiling fan in our living room area. And here we have our slide out buttons for our kitchen and our bedroom. As we move up, we have a couple more light switches right here, control our hallway. And then we have our tank heaters. These are 12-volt heating pads that are connected to our tanks down in the underbelly to keep those tanks from freezing in low temperatures. Here we have our fantastic vent option that is in our living room area. Pretty self-explanatory, up and down for that vent. And then we have our fan speeds that we can control as well. You do have a rain sensor on that vent, so if it's caught up and it rains, that sensor will let you know, and it will go ahead and drop down that fan vent. Here we have our Furrion tankless water heater system. We'll go over the operation of that now. We have our Furrion water heater system. We have our power indicator light right here. That means that system is on. If we want to shut it off, just hit that button one more time. We can see that every icon on here is off. Turning that system on will display everything. Of course, we have our set temperature right here. To reduce or increase that temperature, we'll hit our arrows on the side and it will set in. F and C right here represent Fahrenheit and Celsius for our temperature reading. If we want to change it to Celsius or Fahrenheit, we hit that button right there. We also have a flame icon right here. This will indicate when that water heater is actually running. So if we turn our hot water on, that flame indicator is going to turn on and that system is operational. To turn our system off, once again, we hold down that button right there and it will shut off. Here we have our half bath right here by the stairwell. Not much to go over in here. We'll go over toilet information whenever we hit that master bedroom. We do have another tank level sensor right here for that second black tank system. That is where we'll monitor that system if we're dumping or flushing those tanks. We do have another fan here in this bathroom for vent. We have the off on for it as well as the open and close for the vent. This one does not have a rain sensor, so you need to be mindful whenever it's raining, make sure that vent is closed. In our kitchen, we do have our Furrion 12-volt residential refrigerator. This system right here, you'll see your pad right on the door right there. That'll give you your freezer and fridge temperatures. Our screen automatically locks on here. We'll have to hold down on that lock emblem right there until it unlocks. We want to push on the words themselves, not the LED icons. That's the only thing that's going to respond. We have our different modes. Our sunshine is a vacation mode. That is pretty much an off-grid type mode, right? We're going to reduce some of the power for our system, so we're not using a lot of 12 volts. So we're going to use this if we don't have a shore power connection. We want to go ahead and swap to that vacation mode. That way we're not absorbing as much energy out of that battery system. We're being conservative. Our next mode is our snowflake right here. That is going to drop down our freezer to where it is a quick freeze for the freezer area. And if we hit it again, we'll see another smaller snowflake pop up to the left. That is going to make the refrigerator area cool off a little quicker. And when both of them are on like that, that means both modes are initiated. We hit that mode one more time and it's only going to focus on the fridge. And we can hit that mode one more time. We'll see all those icons are gone. That is going to be our normal operation. If we don't want any of those modes, we kick that on and that will run normally. Now, of course, it's going to ding whenever that door is open too long. If we want to lock that pad, we can go ahead and just hold down that lock button again. We'll see that lock icon pop up. This system is going to automatically lock itself whenever it is left alone for a period of time. Now, the last option on here is our low power mode. We want to shut that system down. We would hold down the mode and the lock button. So put your fingers on those two words right there and hold it down. I think it's 5 seconds. Yep, 5 seconds, and we'll see these dashes pop up on the screen. We hear our compressor shut off on our unit, and that system is shut down. So we would do that when we're storing our unit. We would go into that low power mode. To take it out of that mode, we're going to hold those two buttons down again, and we can kick it back on. If we want to swap between Fahrenheit and Celsius, once again, we unlock that screen right there. We hold down the mode button only, and it will eventually swap over to Celsius temperatures. We can swap it back by holding that mode button down once more, and there we are. So also in here we have the ice machine option right here. We can have a water line hooked up. Now keep in mind, whenever you turn your system off, of course it's going to defrost in that freezer. If you do have the ice maker option hooked up, that ice is going to defrost in there as well. We need to make sure we're cleaning all of that out whenever we go to store our unit. Otherwise, this water is going to leak out and it's going to cause some damage to our wood components around our unit. So make sure we're doing that and we are caring for our unit, because manufacturers aren't going to participate in not caring for our unit properly and defrosting it properly. All right, moving on in our kitchen. Of course, we have our microwave. We do have that vent fan on here. You have that vent outside. You want to open up to make sure it is exhausting out. Close it when you're storing it so you don't have any rodents. Build a nest in there. We also have our light on here we can turn off and on for over our stovetop. Our stovetop here has a glass cover to give us a little more counter space right here. We also want to make sure that it is down when we are in travel so it doesn't fall and break the glass. We're ready to use it. We go ahead and flip it up. We'll go to our knobs right here to pick whatever designated burner we want. We'll turn it on, and then we're going to hit that igniter button right there, and then it's going to start clicking and ignite that particular burner. Now we'll also notice a red light turn on here. This is letting you know that system is on and emitting gas, so it's a safety feature to let you know that that system is on and emitting gas once again. We have a little light switch on the side, give you some ambiance on those knobs. We click it down, it is going to do the knobs and our oven down here. Now, important thing to talk about with our gas system, if we have gas appliances like our water heater, our furnace, stuff like that, we want to make sure that when we pull our unit out of storage, or if we've just swapped our tanks, we had our propane system off, anything of that nature besides having the tanks on for a long period of time, we're going to end up with air in our system. Now, in order to bleed that air out, we want to come over here to that stove, just pick a burner and light it. Let it run for about 30 to 60 seconds till we have that nice crisp blue flame on there, and then we know that we have all the air out of our system, or as much out as we can get at our stovetop. Then we go and we operate those components like our furnace and our water heater. This will help reduce the opportunity for those to go in a fault mode due to air in the system. Now, like I said, this is only commonly going to happen after you changed your tanks or you bring your unit out of storage where you had your tanks off for a period of time. Last thing we have is our oven down here. Our oven is going to operate off of our control knob here on the side. We have to turn it to pilot and actually hold that button down to emit gas down there at the pilot. Once again, going over to our igniter button right here, we'll push that down and we'll hear that automatic igniter start to try to ignite that flame down there. Now this may stay and still take a little bit longer after you bleed the air out of your system because of the small orifice in there. So it may take a little bit longer, it may not. Once it lights, keep it down for about 30 to 60 seconds, heat up that thermocouple down there, and then you can turn it to whatever your desired temp is, and you'll see that flame tube start to light up and it's good to go. If it goes out on you, then you want to just go back, light that pilot again, and start that process over. On the side of your island, you're going to see your COLP detector. This is a safety device to warn you of any cautious gases that may enter your unit. You'll hear it go off. You need to exit your unit. You want to test this once a month and make sure that chirper alarm is working. If we have that little green light that we can see on the bottom, we know that it has 12 volts and that it is operating. And once again, just check it monthly, make sure it's operating, or for any other trips. They do have an expiration on here. You'll find it printed on the front, or you may have to unscrew it, see it stamped on the back. Beware what that date is. Make sure you have it changed out once that expiration hits. And you need to do the same thing with your smoke detector. Check it, make sure that battery is changed out and operating properly, and make sure you're testing it as well. In our living room area, of course, we have our TV. We can run it up and down with that switch right there, 12-volt operated motor there. And this needs to be stored down when we are in travel. We have our quick charge wireless charging system right there for our phone. Down here we have our Jensen radio system with our Bluetooth options and everything on it, as well as a zone 1, zone 2 to control our interior and exterior speakers. We also have our 110 operated fireplace there at the bottom. We'll go over the operation of that now. Here we have our fireplace. We have a sensor right up here in the top right. We have to aim that remote at to turn it on. We have our Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature we can change to. And right here, this little flame icon is going to change the dimness of our flame. If we want to change the lighting of our flame, we hit the light bulb on the screen down here at the bottom, and it'll give you some different options right there. If we want to operate our heater on a timer, once again, electric heater, it is going to be this button right here. It looks like a clock, and when we push it, we can see some times pop up, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, all the way up to 8, and then it will go to 0 hours, letting you know that that timer is off. If we want to change our temperature, we'll use one of these two buttons at the bottom, and we can see once again we have a temperature down there, and we will go ahead and raise it until it kicks on, or lower it, we want it to kick off, or we can keep going until it says on, and that heater will stay running all the time. We kick it up one more time and it's going to say OF, meaning that that system is off. Our stairs leading up to our bedroom, in this bottom cabinet right here, we have our 12-volt fuses right here. In this cover, this is going to cover all of your 12-volt components, and we can see here everything is labeled to be able to identify what is what. And we also have our 110 breakers right here. Same thing, we can identify everything that's in there. You're going to have that GFCI breaker in this system, which means you'll have that little white button on the breakers so you can test it. Now, if you have a GFCI, which we had talked about is going to be in any wet location, your bathrooms, exterior, kitchen, stuff like that, and that GFCI isn't working, you want to go over to that GFCI breaker and make sure it is not tripped. You just reset it, kick it back on. Once again, if you want to test that system, you'll go to that white test button, push it, and it should trip power to all those outlets. Now, for your 12-volt system, you're also going to have a converter on your unit that's going to charge your battery system anytime you're plugged into shore power. So it's a 110 operated device, so it will have a 110 breaker in here that gives it power. But a converter swaps 110 voltage to 12 volt voltage and is essentially a battery charger, all right? So anytime you're plugged into shore power, that device is going to be charging your 12 volt battery system. That's why we need to make sure that disconnect is on out there anytime we're plugged in. That converter is generally going to be found behind the wall panel of the storage bay in our front area. In our hallway, we'll find our AirXL thermostat that also has heat option on it. So we'll go over the operation of that. We're also going to have another thermostat in our bedroom with with AC cool option only on it, no heat. So they're both going to operate the same, but this hallway one is only going to have heat on it. We'll touch on that now. This is our AirXL thermostat right here. You'll have one for each separate air conditioning system in your unit. In order to operate, you'll hit that space bar down at the bottom. You'll cycle through. You have the options for fan low and fan high. This will only circulate the air throughout your unit. It will not cool your unit. So when we're ready to go into that cool mode, we hit it one more time and it's going to go into cool high or cool low. This will keep the fan on all the time. Whether your compressor circulates off or not, it will continue to blow that fan, so the air may not always be cool while it is initiated. Now, one thing that you need to remember is during the summertime, you really actually want it running on cool highs, so it will help clear out that condenser and dry it up during those hot months where that compressor is only cycling every so often. If we want to keep it in auto where that fan shuts off, whenever the compressor shuts off, we're going to hit it one more time. We're going to go into auto and we can choose our low or high speed. Once again, that fan shutting off when the compressor shuts off and it's done cooling. For your central thermostat, more than likely in your living room area, you will have that heat option that will initiate the furnace as well. When we want to turn that system off, we just continue to cycle through till we get to that off position. When we want to change our temperature, we can just use these arrows right here. That will adjust our temperature on our unit. The initial temperature that you have on here, this is your actual room temperature that you have. All right, here we are in the master bedroom. Of course, we have storage under our bed. We see our second AC unit in the bedroom. This ceiling assembly is going to be the same as our living room assembly. You're going to see your filters right here on the sides. We can pull those two clips, pull them down, and we need to clean those regularly, make sure we're not restricting air to our AC. Another thing you're going to find on here on each end is our dump valves. Those dump valves are quick dump valves, as they call them. And if we want to cool off this bedroom area very quickly, we can go ahead and just open those up and the air will only push out in this area. Same thing in our living room. And if we want them to go through our ceiling ducts and circulate throughout the entire unit, we want to close these off. Otherwise, the air won't be distributed through these ceiling vents. And this is one big racetrack. It's going to go through the whole unit so that air will push through and cool off the entire unit. Over here we have our other backer location for our TV. We can see on our coax plate right here we have an auxiliary satellite port and then TV port. A TV port is for our air antenna channels. And when we want to search for those channels, we can see another little button on the side. When we push it, the light will either turn off or on, that little green light right there. If we're searching for air channels, we want that light on. That's a 12 volt boost for the antenna system to make those channels a little clearer, as well as help pick up any channels that are in an extended area. Now, when we scan for cable channels, we have cable at the campground, we have it hooked up to our ports outside, then we want to make sure that light is off so it doesn't scramble the cable channels. The other port would be our satellite port. If we have a satellite system set up, that would go to our receiver and then from our receiver to our TV. We have our option right here, our upgraded WineGuard gateway system. This is so we can have 5G LTE Wi-Fi if we were to go ahead and subscribe to that system. Otherwise, it can be used as a booster at the campground to help amplify any Wi-Fi they may have there. All right, in our master bathroom, of course, we have our shower spa system right there. Gonna work like a normal shower would. You have your adjustments down there at the bottom for hot and cold, as well as for the shower head options. All of your doors are gonna have travel latches on them, especially our shower door. We need to make sure that is latched so this glass doesn't slide around during travel and break. Here we have our toilet. Once again, a second black tank compared to that one in the mid-bedroom, mid-bath. And our black tank we talked about outside, that is for our number ones, our number twos, and our toilet paper chemicals. That's all we need to put down this system. Don't put anything else. It can get clogged in that pipe and cause some drainage issues. And when we are using the toilet, we have our number ones. That's just liquids, right? We're just going to push that pedal, flush it down, we're done. Number twos will have solids plus toilet paper in there. We want to barely depress the pedal on that toilet. We want to fill that bowl up about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way. That way we have enough water to flush those solids down the drain when we actually go to flush it. Otherwise, that stuff can get clogged up in the pipes. So make sure we are filling that bowl if we're doing number two. Of course, in our front closet, we do have that option for the washer dryer upgrade right there with our water, hot and cold, as well as our drain.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores. We bring the how-to you.